But my name is Emma Rickard. I'm delighted to be with you here this evening. As I said, a really relevant topic. I'm a registered social worker, and I'm also Homewood Health's Regional Director for the Employee and Family Assistance Program for Western Canada. I'm calling in from Victoria, BC, and I know some of you are joining us from across the country. So we also have Lindsay Duncan with us here, and Lindsay's going to be our moderator today. She's keeping an eye on the questions, which I think she'll let me know if this is wrong. You can submit in the chat or the Q&A in writing. Lindsay's going to keep an eye on those, and she'll give you a written response as we go, if it's something that she can address for you. And otherwise, we'll make sure there's some time at the end to have a look at the questions, and we'll answer the ones that we can. So I think those are the key things. Your microphones and videos are disabled, so I can't see and hear you. Hopefully you can hear me, but let's plow ahead and have a look at this topic, practicing mindfulness and gratitude through the holiday season. So I would like to begin by bringing to mind the Indigenous peoples of all the lands we are on today and the significance of these lands. From coast to coast to coast, we acknowledge the ancestral and unceded territory of all the Inuit, Métis and First Nations people who call these lands home. If you would like to learn more about the land you're on, then please take note of this website, or you can download the app and find out all sorts of useful information of the lands all across Canada. And I'd certainly like to acknowledge the lands that I'm on here in Victoria, the lands of the Lekwungen speaking people, specifically the Esquimalt and Songhees First Nations. I'd also like to acknowledge the following before we get into the content of tonight's presentation. So in an effort to be trauma-informed, inclusive and more culturally diverse, we recognise that social determinants of health, such as those listed on the slide, oppress members of marginalised groups and may contribute to the chronic stress and other health conditions that are not reflective of the mainstream culture's experiences. These health conditions are created by and exist within systems of Eurocentric culture, including but not limited to white, patriarchal, heteronormative, individualistic, and capitalist systems. Although the content to follow may not specifically name these systems, it's important for us to acknowledge the disproportionate health burden that is placed on marginalised groups as a result of these systems. And also personally, as a cisgendered heterosexual female, I'm not familiar with all of your cultural practices, including language, including your languages, and I look forward to us all engaging in a shared learning here today. So please feel free to participate in whatever capacity feels comfortable for you. While the winter holidays are meant to be a time of celebration and relaxation for many people, they also generate pressure and strain. This wellness section will touch on some of the common stresses that can emerge during this time, including changes to established habits and routines, social and family challenges, as well as increased feelings of grief, loneliness, and sadness. The emphasis on this evening's session is going to be on two well-research-based strategies to improve well-being, and one of those is mindfulness and the other is gratitude. Both of these have been shown to increase physical and emotional health. So as participants, I'm actually going to invite you to join with me in practicing some of these skills tonight. You're going to be encouraged to develop some habits that can be practiced throughout the holiday season in order to increase your resilience and ability to connect meaningfully with others, so that you can experience more moments of joy and peace over the coming weeks. Specifically, I'm going to invite you in a self-reflection exercise to explore your own personal joys and triggers associated with the holiday season. We're going to look at what are commonly described as stressors for people in the holiday period. We're going to spend some time learning about and defining what is mindfulness and gratitude. And I'm going to get you to do a short mindfulness exercise with me. And then we're going to look at what the research tells us about mindfulness and gratitude. And finally, we're going to move towards developing mindfulness and gratitude habits to sustain your health and well-being throughout the holidays. So we're going to start with the self-reflection exercise. So I would encourage you to grab a piece of paper and a pen or pencil so that you can write down your own answers. And those of you that would wish to can participate by putting your answers in the chat, which Lindsay's going to monitor for us. So there's two pieces to this piece of self-reflection. So this is just about you, not about anybody else, or what we get told, or what you know might be happening for other people. So on your piece of paper, please begin by writing down what you personally usually enjoy most about the holiday season. Those things that you anticipate and look forward to, those things that give you those true moments of joy and pleasure in the weeks preceding and during the holiday, and perhaps after the holiday season. You might find the first 2 or 3 things come quite quickly. Just stay with that a minute and see if you can come up with maybe 5 or 6 things. They don't have to be big, these can be just very small things to do with particular senses, smells or sights. And you may not have many things, and that's okay too. Okay, so now you might want to do another column or draw a line, and underneath I would like you to write down and think about what are the things that you personally find the most challenging about the holiday period. The things that maybe you dread or you know are coming and they play in your mind, maybe wake you at night. The experiences that when you're in them, they really test your coping strategies or your ability to stay present in a moment. And again, these might be little things. They might be quite big things. They might be to do with your environment. They might be to do with the people that you find yourselves with. Again, you might find the first 2 or 3 things come quite quickly. But I encourage you to just take a moment longer and see if you can just dig a little bit deeper. Maybe put yourself back in this time last year, reflect on that. Or think about what's already playing in your mind as you anticipate the end of the school year, the end of the university year, upcoming vacation, impending visitors, and what it is about those things that have been or you're anticipating are being challenging. So we're going to move on, but you could come back to this exercise afterwards and maybe round out or flesh this out a little bit more for yourself as part of a strategy you can use to prepare yourself for what's going to be coming. Certainly, lots of sources of holiday stress expressed by many people. Some of the ones that are commonly talked about are changes to established habits and routines. So that might be to do with taking time away from work, traveling away from home, or having others come and visit. It might be to do with having children home from school or childcare being closed, changes to your own eating or drinking habits or those of others around you and their expectations, interruptions to sleep, changes to sleep and regular self-care habits, maybe being away from home and your own bed and your own things around you. You know, many of these changes really have very positive components, but it doesn't mean they may not throw us off of balance, out of our usual routine. Another thing we hear about a lot is an overwhelming to-do list, and this might be one of the challenges you put on your list. Often things that we feel are important or things that we feel obligated to do. This can include a great deal of shopping, time spent in shops or malls, baking, cooking, preparing food, finding recipes, cleaning the house, cleaning the car, cleaning the clothes, to meet some expectations, maybe your own, maybe those of others. For many people, there's a certain amount of decorating. For some, this is on a small scale. For some, this can really be on a really enormous scale. Some people still send cards through the mail, depending on what countries you're sending them to. This can be an exercise that goes on well before the holiday period. Again, a lot of coordination can be very expensive with stamps. For some, it's finding and creating e-cards, but it's still something on a to-do list. Some people have traditions around gift giving and wrapping. For some, these include things like giving of a teacher gift. The to-do list can be things to do with our own time, expectations about volunteering, attending certain activities, donation of our time or of things. Social and family challenges can certainly be another source of holiday stress. When we have to spend more time with people that we may or may not care about, whether they're friends or family. We may experience increased conflict with loved ones through the holidays, compared to how the conflict that we may experience with them during the rest of the year. And actually, often for many people, there's an expectation to spend time with family that we wouldn't necessarily see through the rest of the year, and that can be part of the challenge. I think we're all confronted with social norms on television and in social media that may not reflect our personal experience, where that can create a whole lot of pressure. Financial strain certainly is a theme that comes up for very many people around the expectations of this time of year. And that can be related to spending, again, expectations of travel or hosting, more time spent in the car with the cost of gas, overspending on gifts, unclear expectations about gift giving, celebrations and all of the costs that go on with that. And for some people, being required to take unpaid time off of work, or work closing down over the holiday period. For others, there's the expectation of being at work and not being allowed to take holidays. People have very different experiences. And a whole bunch of other commitments that can create an extraordinary amount of financial pressure condensed into a short time of year. We've all just been through Black Friday and Cyber Monday and Giving Tuesday. I'm sure you were as bombarded as I was with these messages that all have underneath them, spend, 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 everybody else's. There's an enormous pressure to feel merry, be cheerful at this time of year constantly. And that can come from other people, or it can be self-imposed, something we do to ourselves. We often have very high and unrealistic expectations of how this time of year will be, and often set ourselves up for disappointment when things don't go as planned, or we don't feel how we would expect ourselves to feel, or we just have a whole bunch of expectations that were really never realistic in the first place. leading to overwhelming sense of having fallen short or disappointed. Many people, we don't hear about this, we certainly don't see this portrayed in social media, but very many people describe increased feelings of grief, loneliness, and sadness during the holiday period. It can be a time for many people of remembering holidays past that were quite different, maybe than the holiday that's in front of us this year. For many, it's a remembrance of loved ones who are no longer with us, combined with the seasonal challenges of a lack of sunlight, a lack of outdoor time, shorter days, overindulgence in unhealthy foods or increased alcohol, other substances that can throw us off kilter and increase our susceptibility to the holiday blues, which for some people can be as significant as a seasonal affective disorder, which can happen more commonly at this time of year. And as if all of that wasn't enough, of course, this year is, I think, our third in a row now, where typical holiday stresses have been exacerbated by the challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic that is ongoing, as well as other ongoing global strife and health challenges that we all read about in the media today. So some of these may overlap with what you wrote in the personal reflection exercise, and some of these might be different. So we're now going to turn our attention to the content of the presentation this evening, which really focuses on what it is that we can do to combat or meet halfway these challenges to help increase our resilience and ability to cope. So mindfulness has been talked about for a while now. I suspect most of you have heard of it before, and hopefully perhaps had an opportunity to learn a little bit about it or practice it in different settings. It's often incorporated now in the classroom. Our kids are wonderfully learning about mindfulness, as well as in other workplace settings, exercise settings. So it has its roots in Buddhist meditation, and for some people that might feel that it's not something that resonates with them. However, mindfulness really has been adapted as a mainstream secular practice now. You do not have to be religious or even spiritual to practice mindfulness. You don't have to set aside a specific time for a sort of rigid mindfulness meditation practice in order to reap the benefits. You might choose to, but it's not a prerequisite to be able to benefit from mindfulness. This is something that you can incorporate into your everyday routines as you go through life. So I'm now going to talk about a few tips that will help you, or how mindfulness research shows that it can help you. Sorry, I think I might have missed a slide there. Here we go. Here are a few tips to incorporate into your daily life. So mindfulness, you can practice mindfulness during everyday routine activities. It's really just the experience of bringing awareness to daily activities where you otherwise might be on autopilot. One example would be in the shower. Most of us shower most days or every other day, and it's something that we just do automatically. Although it's really a rich experience that involves, warm water and the lovely scents and lotions, as perhaps you shampoo or condition your hair or use body wash, soaps or exfoliants, sponges. It's really a rich experience that we don't notice. And so mindfulness can be the activity of being aware, bringing your mind and your attention to all of those senses as you go through that experience. Drinking that morning coffee or eating your breakfast, equally things that often we do while multitasking other activities. But what would it be like if you actually decided to bring your full attention to that experience of drinking the coffee, savoring the noises, the sounds of the machine doing its job, the smell as the coffee brews, the milk and the sensation of the froth hitting your lip and the warmth going down your throat. We really lean in and bring our attention to these daily activities that we're doing anyway, but often while our attention is everywhere. So that's one way. Another way is practicing mindfulness in quiet moments. So moments that really, otherwise nothing else might be happening. So this could be while we're waiting, maybe in the grocery store queue, nothing to do but wait a few minutes till it's our turn. Maybe when you're sitting in traffic, there can be a lot of slow traffic at this time of year. You're sitting in a traffic light, waiting for a traffic jam to get moving. Maybe sitting in the car, waiting to pick up your kids at the end of the school day. Or when you hop in the car and you've arrived at your destination, but before you sort of launch out to the next busy thing, these quiet moments are all opportunities to bring your attention to your breath. So by focusing on the flow of your breath in and out from moment to moment, and allowing everything else to just be, not paying attention to what else is going on outside. And the third one is to pick a prompt to remind you to be mindful. So finding a cue that you encounter on a regular basis, and use that to shift your brain into mindful mode. So lots of ways you can do this. You could put a sticker on your bathroom mirror as a reminder, so that when you look in the mirror, whenever that might happen in the morning, that's a cue to have a mindful moment. For some people, it might be walking through a certain doorway, whether it's the doorway into your home office or into your workplace office. Just having a regular cue or reminder that when I go past this place or I do this thing, that I'm going to take that moment to shift my brain into mindful mode, bring my brain to the present moment with attention and without judgment. So any activity of daily life can be practiced with mindfulness, whether it's sweeping the floor, washing the dishes, patting the dog, eating a raisin, but it really is about, it really helps to practice. When beginning mindfulness, it helps to do the same activity repeatedly for a while, maybe several times a day or daily or several times a week. Like all good habits, it takes a while. Sorry, I flipped the slide there, Yara. It takes a while to develop a new habit, and it takes effort at the beginning, but with practice, it can become automatic and we get better and more skillful at it, and it becomes a regular part of our day. So what is gratitude? Sorry, before we move on to mindfulness, I'm actually going to take a moment to do a mindfulness exercise with all of you. So I would like you to take a moment to sit comfortably in a way that feels respectful to your body. Like me, you're probably sitting in front of your computer. I encourage you to put both feet on the ground, relax your shoulders. You can close your eyes if you want to. And I'd like you to bring your attention to your breath. As you breathe in and as you breathe out. I notice that I'm breathing in by my nose and out through my mouth. You might be doing it differently, and that's okay. Just notice that. You'll notice that the air has been warmed as you breathe it out. We have a relationship with the air that we breathe. We breathe in that cooler air from the room and breathing out warm air from our lungs. I'd like you to take a few moments to simply notice these sensations. the cool and the warm. Now remember that whenever we put our attention somewhere, in this case, with our breathing, it's natural that at some point you might drift or a distraction might come in. Perhaps my voice is a distraction itself. At any time that you might drift or notice distractions, well, that's mindfulness. So long as you gently bring yourself back to where you want to be. And in this case, that's with the breath, and with the cool and the warm sensations. Sometimes people find it helpful to have a little mantra. So maybe as you breathe in and you feel that cool sensation, you could say, breathe. And as you breathe out with that warm sensation, you could say, relax. So we're saying, relax. We're breathing in relaxation, and we're breathing out or exhaling stress. Just a little mantra, relax. Stay with that for a moment. In a moment, I'm going to count to 3, and when I reach 3, that will be your cue to open your eyes if you close them, but to come back to this webinar so we can continue on together. 1, 2, and 3. Hope you found that as pleasant as I did. John Kabat-Zinn launched the mindfulness-based stress reduction at the University of Massachusetts Medical School in 1979, and its benefits have been studied and documented by many others. And this slide shows just some of the advantages that people report after practicing mindfulness. Okay, now let's move on to gratitude. I kind of like these descriptions on the slide. Gratitude has been described as the quality of being thankful, a readiness to show appreciation for, and to return kindness. Gratitude is just one of many positive emotions. It's really about focusing on what's good in our lives and being thankful for the things that we have. Gratitude is pausing to notice and appreciate things that we often take for granted, like having a place to live, food, clean water, friends, family, even access to the computer. One of the leading scientific experts on gratitude, Robert Emmons, argues that there are 2 components that are key. One is an affirmation of goodness, affirming that there are good things in the world. And the second is recognizing that the source of this goodness is outside of ourselves. So acknowledging that other people, or even higher powers, if you're of a spiritual mindset, give us many gifts, big and small, to help us achieve goodness in our lives. So the social dimension is a really important part of gratitude. Gratitude is a practice often used by those who have a strong and resilient mindset. It's shown to have a positive effect on those who suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder. In fact, a study done on Vietnam War veterans who suffered from PTSD showed that daily gratitude had salutary effects, demonstrating positive relationships with a hedonic and eudaimonic, daily well-being. So I'm just going to break those words down for you because they're not ones we use in everyday life. Hedonic perspective is about the pursuit of pleasant and comfortable states, whereas a eudaimonic perspective is about living a good life and being fully functional. So both things are important, right? Being able to have pleasant and comfortable states while focused on living a good life where we can be fully functioning or striving to do what is meaningful, even if it's difficult to achieve. You know, there are different types of happiness or contentment, some of which are achieved through self-actualization or having meaningful purpose in one's life. So why does practicing gratitude have positive benefits? Well, there's a number of different reasons. It promotes the savouring of positive life experiences. Maybe we talked about savouring before. They're really wallowing in, leaning in and noticing all the small aspects of what's positive in an experience. In contrast to stress, depression and anxiety, which tend to focus our attention on the negative things in life. There's always a mix. There's positive and negative in almost everything. But where we have a choice and control is where we choose to focus our attention and mental energy. Another positive impact is increasing of our self-esteem, our sense of self-worth. When we reflect on our blessings, what others have done for us, and what we've accomplished, we're more likely to have an increased and enhanced sense of confidence and success. Gratitude helps us cope with stress and difficult life circumstances. It helps us adjust by seeing that things could perhaps be worse, but also allowing us to notice and turn our attention to the blessings that we do have, even when they may be more difficult to see. The more time we spend looking for and paying attention to our blessings, the easier they are to find. And this is part of resilience building. Next, gratitude encourages moral and pro-social behaviour. Remember, we talked about this having an important social aspect. People who express gratitude tend to see the world as a better place than people who don't. When you become more aware of the positive things in the world, you're more likely to reciprocate. And so this strengthens our relationships with family, friends, and the people we work with. And the fifth and final point, gratitude can prevent us from adapting and causes us to stay at a higher level of positivity following positive life experiences. And even the small joys can have a lasting positive impact if we practice gratitude. This is different than hedonic adaptation. That's about a theory that says people will repeatedly return to their baseline level of happiness, regardless of what happens to them. People often have a belief, and we'll hear people say, you know, oh, if I could just, move to a warmer climate or have a winter holiday, I'd feel happier. If I just had more money, if I won the lottery, then I'd be happier. If I could just have that handbag, or if someone gives me that new pair of boots, then I'll be happy. Whereas in fact, this theory says there's no validity to that. People quickly return to their positive baseline level of happiness. So it's not those things, it's in fact the practice of gratitude that is more around small things, that is much more likely to give us a lasting sense of happiness in our lives. A regular practice of cultivating gratitude has been shown to improve one's energy levels and life satisfaction. So a number of ways that you can do this. Some people choose to keep a gratitude journal where you list at least 5 things in your life that you're grateful for every day. This can be really hard to start with, and that gets easier with practice. And these can be quite little things. It's good to try and avoid repeating the content of your daily entries over and over again, so that we practice really challenging ourselves to find unique things to be grateful for in that day. So you might be grateful for your dog every day, but try and be more specific. Maybe the way your dog greeted you at the door today, the way your dog chose to sit under your chair as you sat and did this webinar. Try and break it down to small things that really are reflective of that day to get the most impact from a gratitude journal. Once you start looking for things to be grateful for, really you'll begin to find them everywhere. So it's important to put these new skills into practice, these skills of mindfulness and gratitude. There are a number of ways to do it. You can set intentions for the holidays by evaluating what's important for you. So that self-reflection exercise that you did earlier can be step one in putting a plan into place for dealing skillfully with the challenges and the rewards that might be ahead. Mindful and grateful indulgence. Remember, we talked about the different ways you can incorporate mindfulness into your everyday and gratefulness into your everyday. Practice, practice, practice. Cultivate meaningful connections. So much evidence that says it's our connections and relationships with others that truly build our resilience and give the most reward in our life. Look around and think about who you can connect with and notice and appreciate those people that are connecting with you. Accept that any and all emotions might come to you over this holiday season, and they are normal and shared by many. The challenge is not to sort of deny them or push them away, but to recognize, accept them, and develop some strategies to cope skillfully with them. And last, but as important as all the others, look for those moments of joy. Often they're there, but we're not noticing them because we're busy focused in on our stressors and the things that we find challenging. So mindfulness and gratitude can be strategies that we can use to develop the skill that are going to help us notice and then appreciate those moments of joy. So in advance of the holidays, set aside some time to evaluate what's most important to you during this time of year. This will help you determine the areas that you want to put more energy into and the things that you may choose to let go of. For example, you might decide what you want to focus time on, whether it's spending time with loved ones and less on gift giving, present buying. You might decide in your family group or social circle to do a draw names this year for a gift exchange, or do a secret Santa, or you know what, eliminate gifts altogether. Focus on time spent together. What's important is deciding what you want to do and what is best for you. There is absolutely no right or wrong way to celebrate. You can do something different than what you've done in the past. And if traditional or familiar family traditions are too painful or not achievable this year for any reason, it is important that you communicate. Let friends and family members know in advance what you can and can't offer this year. It's a good way to avoid misunderstandings and misguided expectations and to free ourselves from guilt and expectation. Practicing mindfulness doesn't require you to set time aside for a formal meditation practice, as we talked about. You really can practice mindfulness throughout the day as you're going about other activities. We have a tendency to multitask all the time and not always to good effect. So mindfulness can be a way of really bringing your attention to just the one activity you're doing at a time. Drinking a coffee, having a cup of tea, enjoying a piece of chocolate. Mindful eating really encourages healthier eating habits. People report back that it can help them lose weight because they tend to stop eating when they're full because they're noticing and paying attention and really getting more pleasure by savouring the food that they eat. Remember that we eat both to nourish our bodies, but also for pleasure. For many people, food is a way to connect with their cultural traditions, and holidays can be a great time to bring awareness to the enjoyment of preparing and consuming cherished foods. The holidays are a great time to express gratitude. For example, to those who've worked hard to prepare meals or bake treats. Here's an exercise you could try. So before you begin your next meal, which might be just after this webinar, or for some of you, depending where you're calling in on from, it might be tomorrow morning. But bring your attention first to your breath, as we practiced just before. Notice when you breathe in and you breathe out. Hold the intention of being grateful and appreciative of the food that is set before you. A lot of people try and do this by developing a ritual, perhaps setting the table, eating their food at the table rather than on the fly in the car or in front of the television. People can say aloud or to themselves, I'm aware of the work and the preparation that went into this meal. I am grateful for the soil that grew the vegetables, the farmer that picked the produce, the animals that grazed the land, the truck that delivered the food to the market. Or you can adapt that for your own circumstances. If someone prepared the food for you, you might want to express gratitude to that person. Another piece can be to chew slowly and focus on the smells, the tastes, and the textures of your food. Removing distractions can be a really important part of gratitude and appreciation for a meal. Try turning off the TV, putting down your cell phone, not reading while you're also eating a meal. Research has shown that couples who practice mindfulness are more satisfied with their relationships and recover more quickly from conflict. Parents who practice mindfulness report less parenting-related stress and more positive parenting experiences and better parent-child relationships, which leads to happier children with better social skills. Healthcare professionals, and some of you might be, who practice mindfulness are better able to cope with stress and connect with their patients and have an improved quality of life. Mindfulness can foster compassion and altruism. When we practice mindfulness, we're more attuned to the suffering of others and more likely to help somebody in need, to combat bias and to reduce prejudice. As we've learned, expressing gratitude to others can help to build and maintain social relationships. A really simple gratitude practice to implement over the holidays might be making it a habit to express gratitude for something to one person each day over the holidays. So express gratitude out loud or in writing for one thing to one person each day. It could be a colleague who's covering for you while you take time off work, an aunt or family member who shared a family recipe, a friend who helped you problem solve a situation. It does not have to be something big or even anything specific. It could simply be a gratitude for someone being in your life, but taking the time to let someone know that you appreciate them can have a big impact on both them and yourself to lift spirits. The holidays are a time of giving, but that doesn't have to be material giving. I really encourage you to set yourself that challenge, see if you can do that. There can be a lot of pressure to feel merry and bright throughout the holidays, but it's not the reality of the human experience any time. And for some people, the holidays can be particularly challenging, and that's okay. And it might be helpful to use some of these strategies to accept the difficult aspects of the holiday season. Accepting difficult emotions. We can plan ahead and be honest with ourselves about what's going to be difficult. Give ourselves permission to avoid the holiday hype if we need to, and just not expect more of ourselves than we're able to deliver. So we're not setting ourselves up for disappointment. Allow yourself time and space to feel grief or sadness, joy or excitement, whatever might come. Often we overschedule around the holidays and we're so busy rushing from one thing to the next, and we're not really allowing ourselves to appreciate or be in the moment. Building in some downtime can be really important to process or notice any difficult or even positive emotions. And that can help us from being too distracted to notice what's going inside of ourselves. So this acronym, RAIN, can be really helpful. Recognize your thoughts and feelings. Allow that feeling. Don't judge it. Just notice it. Don't try and change it. Investigate. Be curious how that feeling or thought lives in your body, how it affects how you breathe. Just gentle observation. And then the final N, nurture yourself. Ask how you can respond to this part of yourself with compassion. Think about how you would respond to a small child and maybe try and bring that same care and kind gentleness to yourself. Maybe lay a hand on the part of your body where you feel the anxiety, on your breath or on your belly, on your throat if you have a dry mouth, and say something kind to yourself like, it's okay. I know you're scared. Give yourself a hug. Check in with your stress level each day in the weeks that are coming, and use a rating scale to check in where you're at today. Remind yourself to check in repeatedly at several points through the day and see how you're doing. Remember all the different aspects of how we can experience our stress and challenges. Physically, you're tense or relaxed or tired. Doing a body scan can be really helpful. Mentally, is your mind racing, forgetful, or are you experiencing calm thoughts? You focused or unfocused? Emotionally, you're anxious or calm, uncertain or grateful? Socially, are you leaning in or leaning out? Are you connected or isolated? Lonely or overwhelmed? Spiritually, are you feeling connected or disconnected? Taking time every day to pay attention to these things really can increase our skill at managing them by noticing when we need to lean in to gratitude or mindfulness. So moments of joy, committing to take some time to reflect on the deeper meaning and spirit of the holidays for you, your family, community, and the world. Allowing yourself enough time to celebrate each activity or event, not rushing. Trying to be present and mindful in all the things that you do. Honouring traditions, but not being held hostage by them. Keep space for new ideas and growth and change. And where you can, take time to laugh. I think probably many of you have heard of the Danish concept of hygge, that idea of leaning in and enjoying what winter can bring rather than fighting against it. And certainly some of the Nordic countries really have developed some expertise at this and indeed can be quite confused at other nations who find it difficult. But really the idea of this joy exercise is to find ways to adjust that mindset and your appraisal of what's happening by really looking at our capacity to control our responses to difficulties and maybe taking a moment to unearth some hidden resilience that can help us find our way through dark and challenging times. So I'm mindful of that time, and we're just running a little over time. Again, I apologise for the delay getting started. But just a summary here of acknowledging that holidays can be stressful, and the more we can be aware of our personal triggers, then the more skillfully we can meet those challenges by taking some time to prepare and evaluate our values and priorities. By being present and connected to ourselves and to others, used by mindfulness and expressing gratitude, we really can find the quality of the holiday experiences. Being kind to yourself and accepting the difficult as well as the pleasant emotions without judgment. And by building in daily habits to sustain our physical and emotional well-being, it's going to be easier to favour moments of joy. There are some references here of the materials used in the presentation today. As a reminder, this presentation will be available to you after it's completed, so you'll have access to prompts to remember these things that we've talked about as you head into the coming weeks. So that brings us to the end of the slideshow today. I'm going to stop that sharing. And I know some of you may need to go. I'm just going to have a look and see if I can see any questions. So I can't see any questions that have come up today. Lindsay, I'm not sure if you're there and you're seeing some that I'm missing. But as we have a look at that, I would like to thank you all for joining us this evening. And I hope that some of these strategies you can add into the toolbox that you already have to cope with what's coming ahead. So I'm seeing some questions now. A copy of the recording will be made available to you. I wish you the very best, and thank you for sticking with me. Thank you all for joining us this evening.